Hello everybody and welcome to Parks Bros. It's Drew here, and we're in Rolling Springs, our Planet Coaster 1 park, based off of Cedar Fair and Six Flags. And my goodness, it's officially November of 2024. There is so much we gotta talk about when it comes to Planet Coaster and Planet Coaster 2. This park, made with the help of viewers like you, has become something that is unbelievably massive and a full-sized park with a full-fledged history behind it. Every single year brings a new addition or a new challenge that the park had to deal with in this alternate reality. Whether it be replacing old amphitheaters with new coasters, adding new food venues, or even just taking away entertainment options throughout the years because of lower funding and spending, everything has been accounted for in this semi-realistic park. It has been an absolute joy and a challenge to be building in this park over the past year. I've already put 400 hours into this park alone in Planet Coaster 1, so be sure to stay tuned just for this. But speaking of the history of this park and the timeline, it'd be a real shame to not bring up some of the biggest changes in the park's history. Especially when this park has been going for over 40 years straight. This park originally opened in the year 1982 in Grand Lake, Colorado by the same people who opened up Kings Island, Kings Dominion, and Carowinds, the Taft Group, and then eventually got bought out by Paramount and eventually Cedar Fair and now merged with Six Flags. Now, there's a lot of history to talk about in this park proper, specifically how its terrain constraints ended up limiting the park in its original state. Where they put the entrance ended up hindering what they could do in terms of a parking lot. Having only 350 spaces ended up not being near enough once the park kept expanding, and eventually it led to this being specifically designated the VIP parking lot. Now, it was designated such after a very big change with the park and how they operated. In 1996, they added a brand new parking lot, 5 times bigger than the VIP lot, and able to sustain the crowds they were gathering. To make it easier on guests, they implemented a bus transit system to go in between the large parking lot and the main park. However, the large parking lot wasn't just built to be a parking lot. It had something extra exciting for those who were visiting in the heat of summer. In that summer of 1996, Rolling Springs officially introduced its brand new water park called Rolling Rapids. That's right, we're officially in Planet Coaster 2. It's been 8 years since the original came out, and now we're officially in the sequel. And what better way than creating a water park based around our dry park that we're still building in the original Planet Coaster. And thank you all so much for voting on the multiple polls we've put out over the past couple of weeks, just asking, what should the name be? Should it be related to Rolling Springs? And I think, honestly, what we're going to be able to create together with your help is going to be really, really cool. So here is just the toll booths off of the main highway that kind of connect these two parks together. If you follow this main highway, it does lead to a tunnel that looks very, very similar to the one that's in Rolling Springs. Technically, the park is just on the other side of that mountain in the background there. But yeah, let's go ahead and go through the toll booth real quick, pay our parking fee, and head into the kind of untouched parking lot. As of now, I still have to do a lot of detail work out here. It's just pretty monotonous, so I've kind of avoided it. I will say there are a lot of things that I'm absolutely adoring about Planet Coaster 2, these decals being one of them, just adding more texture to these usually pretty plain buildings by making it seem like the plaster has kind of worn away from the brick. I think it's really, really cool to be able to add all of that. There's so many great things about this game so far. Lots of setbacks. We'll get to that after I introduce the rest of the entrance here. Super simplistic all around the parking lot, though. Just wanted to make sure it was nice and manicured on the exterior all around with different plant life. But yeah, there's still so many things I got to be able to cover in the parking lot itself. And honestly, I got to study parking lots more, it feels like, because I don't really understand the layout, at least from it being a blank slate over here. But as we get closer to the front entrance, the first thing you'll see on the right-hand side is a set of restrooms. Of course, you need that on the exterior of every park. And then a little bit of information to be handed out in this office space if you need help, kind of a guest service area, if you will. And then, of course, the ticketing booths right here for both parks, actually. At least you're able to buy tickets for both parks. At least that's the idea I have in my head. And then you show off your ticket at the bus stop, of course, and that's how you get free transportation over to the other park. Now, there's this really, really cool water feature in front of Rolling Rapids, and very influenced by SeaWorld Orlando with a lot of things, actually, which I was not expecting to do exactly, but I think it's working out really, really well. As we keep heading towards the front entrance, you can see kind of just plain walls line the exterior of the park, with a little bit of nods to this surfing kind of tropical theme that we're going for. Very, very influenced by Soak City at Knott's Berry Farm, especially considering it opened just before in real time, and also considering it's owned and operated by the same chain still. There's going to be a lot of influence, especially this entryway here. Pretty much ripped it off of Soak City, especially. And then, as we keep heading to the left, we have Rolling Gifts. This is kind of the exit gift shop for both parks, kind of the last hurrah if you want to grab something for a family member or yourself, as you'll head off the buses right there and kind of walk near it again. And of course, if you're walking out of Rolling Rapids, you're going to be stopping at the gift shop too. So let's go ahead and head through the kind of makeshift security. This is something that would have been added much later, as we've seen at many parks. Only the one metal detector, because honestly, the way water parks worked, at least in my experiences that I've had at water parks, security does not nearly need to be as kind of massive. You don't need like 4 different metal detectors because there's not nearly as many people entering at one time. It's more spread out, which is kind of weird as a regular theme park person and not like a water park person per se. But yeah, it's kind of been interesting and really inspiring to actually move into theming differently and building differently, as we'll walk into Rolling Rapids for the first time. Again, so much Soak City inspiration, as we have this little surfing statue to greet you. On the left-hand side, some backstage access for those who need it, and a locker rental space. I tried to make the, classic locker systems you see at theme parks all over without going too in-depth with the detail on them. But yeah, I think they look really good from this angle, especially once you get kind of up close. I mean, obviously, it's just some metal walls, but we're just going to stay outside of that building. If anything, just to the right, of course, is the changing rooms. This is where you'll go in and, of course, change into your swimsuit and then head off to the slides or the pools. I'm really excited to get going on those very, very soon. As we keep heading towards the right, this is Surf's Food and Stuff. This is kind of your main, food, etc. from Magic Mountain type of deal. There's just a bunch of different restaurants inside. There's burgers, there's ice cream, there's slushies, just about anything you would need at the front entrance of a park food-wise, which when I let guests in, it gets absolutely cramped inside, and the guests in this game don't really know how to use the path system, unfortunately, and most of them get stuck. It's really bizarre still. So many things that aren't quite up to snuff on this game quite yet, but it's all right. As we'll head further to the right, this is the main bathrooms at the entrance. Made sure to add this dividing wall just to make it look a little bit more realistic. It's probably too big, honestly, for most of those dividing walls in real life, but we are working in Planet Coaster 2 scale, which I will say is phenomenally different with the ability to scale individual pieces. However, we can't really scale the 4-meter walls any differently, which I'm fine with, but that's just kind of why it is maybe a little bit bigger than it should be. Of course, some more backstage access this way. There is going to be a lot of cool things in terms of backstage that we will actually have to work on in this game, which I'm super excited about, that they've taken that from Planet Zoo and brought it over to the sequel. And I can't wait to mess around with it more, because as of right now, there's only water treatment and power treatment, and that's about it. It's not very in-depth, so I'm curious if that will have any greater functions in the future alongside weather. Weather is something that is going to be massive in this game. There's rain, there's heavy winds. I will say the winds look really awkward with the trees. They all kind of flow in a very unnatural way, like they bend and stretch instead of just moving, if that makes any sense. So I'm curious if that'll change, and also what it will affect in the future. And I keep saying all of this because the game's not finished. I will be completely honest. I've played for over 25 hours in the first 2 days of the launch, which I know is insane. I will say a good chunk of that I was AFK, but this game is not even near finished, and it's very, very obvious. Now, we won't jump directly into that just because I want to be able to marvel at the ideas we're working with in Rolling Rapids a little bit longer, as we'll walk around to this pedestrian bridge that will actually lead to a resort and hotel space across the highway, which I'm super excited to get into that. Hopefully we do get hotels in this game. Otherwise, I'm just going to build a big empty building with a pool right next door. As you'll see, this is the main highway, and it does have a walking path to Rolling Springs as well. And so if you don't want to take the bus, you don't want to wait for the bus, which is something we see at Disneyland especially a lot of the time. People will, instead of waiting for the tram, just do the mile and a half walk, just because it takes less time. But yeah, that will be an option, as well as the resort will take over this side of the highway. As we get kind of a look over, you can see some of the slides I've built. I will say the ones in the far background are to show off some of the flaws I've found with the game, but these ones in the foreground, the racing mat slides, all 12 of them. There's 12 of them because of another issue. We'll talk about it in a second as we just kind of sneak through this gap in the fence. Oh, no, it won't let me. I guess I have to walk on the paths officially. It's okay. The paths don't... Oh, where did... Okay, let's just go through the employee entrance. It's fine. So, one thing I found with the slide editor and the slide builder, outside of very, very clunky UI, unfortunately, is you can't delete individual platforms that make up the slide station, if you will. I placed down a handful of platforms, expecting me needing more space for 6 racing mat slides, and I was okay with that. I built a handful of them, thought I could delete the individual platform pieces, could not, and it got to the point where I'd already built 6 slides. Why not just build another 6 and fill out the rest of this platform that I apparently cannot edit in any way? Can't even change the railings or anything like that either, which is just really unfortunate if you ask me. Obviously, I could go in there with pieces in the future and go crazy with it, but right now, not going to do that just because I haven't set up the layout quite yet. Speaking of the layout, here's kind of an overview of the front entrance area. It is pretty simplistic, don't get me wrong. Kind of went for this diagonal feel compared to the parking lot, just to add some more flowiness to it and not just make it a rectangle like at Rolling Springs. But it's kind of turned into this weird rectangle anyway. I feel like it's just easier to build that way. I will say with the new pathing options, it is so easy to be able to make these free-flowing shapes. However, I feel like the tool itself is so complex that I end up just finding myself going to the stamp tool for the pathing, just like in the original game where I'm just making Roller Coaster Tycoon type of pathing, which is not great if you ask me, to make flowing paths and more realistic paths. But it's fairly easy, especially with how many complications I had with trying to make this boardwalk around the water here, and a couple other things I struggled with, like the hexagon around the central fountain here. So many issues with that. It took me a long time to get used to it. Again, I'm 25 hours into this game, and I still feel like I don't have a grasp on the controls, because the UI is so confusing, and the controls are so complex in a lot of different ways. I will say the path building and the pool building are incredible. However, they're just really hard to truly grasp. Now, I'm not going to lie. I was going to make a full video before Frontier announced they were doing a hotfix and talking about everything wrong with the game and how the game is unfinished. It feels like it's still in a beta. And I say that because I had access to the beta of Planet Coaster 1, and it felt pretty similar to this. However, this was launched as a full release, and it's kind of nerve-wracking if you ask me. I was already nervous in my last episode of Rolling Springs that the game was unfinished from everything I was seeing, and having it in my hands, unfortunately, it definitely is. There are so many things that are improved. The looks of the game are genuinely incredible, and I have a below minimum requirement graphics card, but it still looks better and gets better frame rate than the original Planet Coaster. I can't ray trace, unfortunately, but at the same time, I'm kind of glad my computing power is not being taken up by that. But I wish it was being taken up by slide physics. I don't know if you've been seeing this, but this slide in the center right here is a double tube slide. Now, if you've been on one of these in real life, you know in the main part of the flume, it doesn't quite spin around like that. Yeah, it's really awkward, and going backwards up this magnet launch. Also, there is like a just completely normalized 2 inches of water in that all the way up. It doesn't really make any sense. Then you have this crazy drop and turnaround that just completely ignores physics all around and looks really, really goofy in my opinion. I know they are fixing that soon, so that's why, again, I didn't really make a video talking exclusively about it. But it does feel really kind of weird, the fact that they released it and still were saying, oh yeah, we're still working on this stuff. Why release a game when it's this unfinished? And unless you just want to say it's in early access, which I think they should have done at this point. Just say it's open for early access now, and then January or February they have the initial release, the official release. But yeah, the slide physics are just really kind of embarrassing, to be completely honest. I know they're fixing them soon, but here's another example. It's going 50 miles an hour right there, and pulls -1 Gs, and it just stays glued to the track. It's really, really odd. Also, that's not to mention the fact that these slides have flat bottoms, which is really disturbing to me. It's really weird that it's disturbing to me, but it just looks wrong. I don't know how else to put it. Now, another thing is you can actually customize these slides pretty crazily, including the preset pieces being shrunk to the point where it's just absolutely puny, which is cool until you ride it. I will say a flashing lights warning here. Yeah, when everything's on a straight predetermined path, it's very awkward looking when you know the speed should not be looking like that. I will say it feels like they just kind of took the coaster editor and just directly took that and applied it to the slides when slides don't work the same. We saw it in Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. There was complete slide physics from the beginning of the Soaked expansion. And also, there's bobsled coasters from the original game. I don't think it's in this game, unfortunately, but the original Planet Coaster had a bobsled coaster, and it used physics pretty well. Maybe not perfectly, but it was pretty dang good at it. I did get the pre-order, so I do have some of the exclusive items. I just wanted to see how that looked. This has kind of become my tester park, if you couldn't tell. I even started adding some ridiculous things to the coaster trains just to see what I could do, and I gotta say they look really, really goofy all around seeing all of this stuff. But there are so many great ways you can use this tool. I've seen people do parade floats already, which is incredible, and I can't wait to potentially do something like that. I wanted to see every special element with this multi-dimensional coaster, or what's the name of it officially? It's an Automax Multiverse Okay, cool. Yeah, I am really adoring the coasters in this game. Even the blueprints are better and more realistic overall, which is great to see. But yeah, I think this is going to be a real game changer eventually. It feels like most of the things are half-baked, unfortunately. And here's a great example of some of the glitches, even after the hotfix still. I can't test this coaster or close it. I don't know why. Yeah, it's pretty awkward, to be honest, how many glitches and mishaps are still happening. When I build in the building menu, if I duplicate a piece and then press undo, it ends up taking away the color of the same piece that I'm putting down. So then I have to go back into the color menu, select and click 3 different times to get a color selected. It's just really clunky and really unpolished, to be perfectly nice about it. I will say, again, this is an amazing feature. Making the giant tree twist and twirl is really funny to me, honestly. It's really goofy, but I love the idea that we can do this in-game and even, mirror it or duplicate it and make it circular, so many other things, and even move it away from the ride entirely. It could be 1.5 miles away from the ride, but still follow the movements. It's such a cool and well thought out idea overall to a simple complaint about theming coasters. And unfortunately, it's not on dark rides yet, but I really, really hope they add this feature to dark rides, because dark rides are the things that are most themed on the actual ride vehicle. So it would be really, really nice to see that. As you can see, some of the wonkiness from the specialty pieces of the Multiverse coaster. Yeah, I just unfortunately, after 25 hours, am not entirely impressed by the game. I think there are great changes overall. I think it looks gorgeous. The pieces are really interesting to try and use. The scaling tool is such an amazing opportunity for different creative juices to flow. But man, oh man, this game is glitchy. It is so glitchy so far. The pathing system, the pool system, the slides especially, and then the roller coasters apparently as well. And the main issue I have, as I've mentioned a couple times already, the UI is just unbearable on PC. This front entrance in Planet Coaster 1 probably would have taken me, even with the learning curve, a good maybe 8 hours, maybe 10 hours, and that's being pretty generous. In this game, I mean, yes, half of my time has been kind of messing around with the game and trying to learn it more, but this took me so much longer than it should have, because of the UI changes and having to click 5 different times sometimes to get out of the multiple menus. And actually, I can even show you an example here. I'm going to go to edit building. In the original Planet Coaster, the building menu pops up below. So if you want to add something, you can. Well, if I want to add something, I have to go down and click it. And then I have to click Create Custom. And then I can add that. Whoa, cool. Sweet. But let's say I add something like this. And when I click on it, the browser goes away. Why? Just leave it up. It's no biggie to keep it there. There's so many things like that that are just insane to me, unfortunately. And then if I want to exit out, I have to press done with the scenery group, then click out again, and then click out of the extra browser that's already open. So I think a good 1/8 of my time has been used up by clicking unnecessary menus that have popped up, and then don't even get me started on the notifications. I understand those rides don't have an entrance. I don't really care right now. The park's not open. It shouldn't really matter. But yeah, I unfortunately am not completely in love with this game quite yet. I have a feeling I will be once there are more hot fixes, patches, and updates, and especially DLC. Even without DLC, though, if they just had some updates to the UI and updates to physics with the slides, this game would probably already surpass the original. But the game is really frustrating to get through right now, and there's so much incredible potential, I would say. Like, more potential than any Frontier game I've seen outside of potentially Planet Zoo. But there's a lot of changes that need to be made before we get there. However, my rant is over. Rolling Rapids is here, and I need your help. Where should we go next? What type of slides should we add? I'm going to be doing some live streams in the game very, very soon. But yeah, let me know what we should do. And also, I need a name for the mat slides over here. Please let me know what the name of the mat slides is. It's got this rainbow color scheme that's been faded out because this was one of the original rides in the park in 1996. So those colors have just naturally faded over time. That's why it's kind of like this pastel-y rainbow. What should the name of the mat racer slides be? And what other rides should we build? What slides, what potential transportation we should do, and anything else in Rolling Rapids. With that all said, though, I want to say thank you all so much for tuning in for our first episode in Planet Coaster 2. We will be continuing this until this water park is done. And of course, the original Rolling Springs will still be coming out with episodes over the next couple of months until that park is officially done. But with that all said, I want to say thank you all so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. And of course, as always, we'll see you on the next ride.